Geico presents sharing versus oversharing. Earlier this week, Claire Tippins shared a princess nickname generator, 3 pictures of her dog wearing a tutu, and 2 online quizzes, including what candy is your dream castle made of? Claire, your sharing has tipped the sugar scale and turned into oversharing. But have no fear, princess. Geico has something worth sharing with your internet kingdom, like how you could save hundreds on your car insurance just by visiting geico.com. No magic wand required. Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Push them buttons, baby.
Blog Talk Radio.
Wake up, sunshine. Open up your
It's Conover U on Monday morning. Where are you? Oh, there you are.
right here.
Scotty, the preacher Osborne, we're here. It's Monday morning. It's 2016. I can't believe it. And what do I wait? I'm going to be in such a good mood today. We're going to be on the radio. We're going to have the doctor. We're going to have Jennifer come out. Everyone's going to be here. It's going to be so much fun. We're going to have a great time. And then David Bowie dies. Thanks a lot, David. Why don't you just pee all over my morning? Man, that was a bummer. I got to tell you, Scotty, I'm a huge David Bowie fan. And he died at how old? 69 years old? Terrible. Listen, there are people, you go through life, and there are people who are constantly trying to be cool. They're just always trying to be cool. And you know what? You're not cool if you're trying to be cool. There are people who try to be cool, and there are people that are just cool. And David Bowie was one of those. He was just cool. He was a cool guy. And you talk about a guy that cut his own trail. And David Bowie past tense now, David Bowie was way talented enough to just do nothing but sit around and write pop songs, like Elton John and Paul McCartney. He could have done that. I mean, he could have wrote 1,000 pop songs, but he didn't. When you heard a David Bowie song, was there any doubt who that was? I mean, it was him. I mean, that's David Bowie, because he did his own thing, and he was crazy, and he had alter egos, and he was this one day and that one day, and kept reinventing himself. And I just love people like that. I just think, and risking every time he puts an album out, he's risking his career. And he did something else, Scotty. He was the first guy to do an IPO, do an actual public offering, his music catalog. And he did it right before the advent of digital music, where everybody just rips you off. I mean, it was just brilliant. It was a brilliant move. Oh, my God. And I don't know. I just thought he was the coolest. And I used to impersonate him. He was a guy that I would impersonate when I did stand-up comedy. I would actually sing I sang 2 David Bowie songs in my act. And so I have a real personal connection to David Bowie. David Bowie, R.I.P., whatever today is, January 11th, 2016. A sad, sad day. Sad day for the world. Never shall he be replaced. Not even close. Because no one will take risks. No one will take risks with their careers like he would. I mean, maybe Madonna. I would compare only Madonna to him. Madonna would do the same thing. Every time she put out an album, this is 25 years ago, she would reinvent herself. And I always admired that about Madonna as well. But anyway, moment of silence for David Bowie, and all I can say is this. I stumbled into town just like a sacred cow. Ooh. So see you later, David, and that's it. Let's start the show. How are you doing, Scotty? Enough with the eulogies.
Hey, I'm doing great, and I appreciate it. I was never a big David Bowie fan. I would probably find maybe 5% of those guys that I really agree with the lifestyle. But, man, huge respect for the talent that he had and the ability, and like you said, to be able to reinvent himself over and over again, to do the crazy, to do the outlandish. He was not afraid to jump over something, and huge respect for that. And 15 years ago, on the 11th of January, I lost my mom. My sister just called me about right before I talked to you on the phone and said, "You know what today is?" I said, "Yeah." She says, "It's 15 years." I went, "Oh my goodness, I hadn't realized that." So we will never forget the day that David Bowie died. On the day that Mom died.
And 1 year ago, my dad died.
And 1 year on the 11th?
No, he died about a year and 3 weeks ago. But I'm still.
Oh, okay.
I still can't get over that. I don't know why. Yeah.
Not easy. There's still, today will be a long day. I'll tell you when you really go to missing my mom is when my dad's being stupid. Because my mom was always really good at saying, "Larry, quit." But anyways, crazy times going on right now, Rodney, in the political world. It's insane out there.
It is, but there's something more important. Well, go ahead. Say what you were going to say. I didn't mean to butt in.
I was just going to say, for political junkies, we're on, straight heroin right now.
Well, is there any other kind of heroin, Scott? I mean, really, you're the gunrunner, not me.
I tried it.
There's a couple of things. I've been really on basically a rampage. And tell me when the doctor comes on, because I got to bring him on. I've been on a rampage, as Archer would say, because I tell you, last time I went to start a third party, I was going to call Jennifer Lawrence's dad, Crazy Mr. Lawrence, and I was going to start a third party because I was so mad. And you talked me out of it. You talked me off the ledge of starting a third party. I was going to start a third party. Oh, yeah, I know what everyone's thinking. He's crazy. Yeah, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy, pal. I could do it. I could make it happen. Just need a couple of key people, and it would happen. I am telling you right now, Scotty, right now, if a Republican wins the presidency in November of this year, okay, if we get a Republican in there, and that son of a gun, and I'm a Ted Cruz guy. Ted Cruz for president. Let Smith know. I mean, that's the guy you want to vote for. But regardless, if Ted Cruz or you know what? If the guy's got a Republican next to his name, if that person gets in there and they don't get rid of Obamacare. I'm not talking about. Now they're using these code words. Dismantle. We're going to dismantle Obama. What does that mean? Dismantle.
Right.
No. Repeal.
Well, Rodney, speaking of Obamacare.
Repeal. Rip out by the tentacles. Rip out by the roots. Kill. Get rid of. If a Republican president with a Republican Congress and House do not repeal, 100% get rid of Obamacare, third party, Scott. You got it?
I knew that was coming. I was trying to switch over to a doctor who is on the air before you got a chance to say those words, third party. Oh.
We'll say hi to the doctor, but I got to premise it when he comes on. Hey, Doctor of the Stars, Dr. Mark Brodsky, 25 years in Sherman Oaks. He treats everybody for all the important people. He used to treat me, but Obamacare came along, and I lost him, but he's still our good buddy. Dr. Bronstein, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Well, I got
I called in a different number. I guess.
Yesterday.
Yeah, I called in a different number earlier. I guess it didn't go through. So I was there somewhere floating around listening to you guys. Sorry about your mom, and your dad.
Oh, yeah, well, it's a bummer.
Yeah, you know.
Dr. Mark and I talked yesterday a little bit about this, and Scotty and I talked about this when it happened. Something happened to me in Florida, and I called Scott, and I was a raving lunatic, even more so than usual, about what happened. And in a nutshell, and this I was so anxious to talk to the doctor about this. I was in Florida visiting my mom, and I got really sick. I mean, I got really, really sick. She was in the hospital, and, you know, you go to the hospital, you visit somebody, and then you get sick. So I called, and I was trying to get a prescription, not filled, but refilled, at a pharmacy, CVS Pharmacy, which is where I go in California. Now I'm at a CVS Pharmacy in Florida, all right? They've got these things now called computers. You can have your file in there. No matter where you are in the world, they know who you are and what prescription you're taking. So I get it called in. Dr. Mark calls the prescription in. I go over there, and they won't fill it. And they start asking me all these questions. The pharmacy wants to know why I'm in Florida. What am I doing? When did I get to Florida, and what am I doing there? And I said, quite frankly, that's none of your business. I'm just trying to fill a prescription here. Well, what do you care what I'm doing? Well, we have to have this information. Well, no, you don't. I'm on vacation. Oh, well, how long are you on vacation for? Like, I don't know. I mean, depends. Depends on the weather. I couldn't believe it. They're asking me all these personal questions. Now, I'm just trying to fill a prescription. Well, who are you visiting? What? They want to know who I'm visiting? Mr. Bronstein, what's going on here? Have you heard anything?
I don't know. The more you tell me about this, the more I'm picturing a Larry David skit. This is like a typical Larry David skit when he would go to fill a prescription, and this would be what he would go through in his show. It was so funny.
Well, before Obamacare, nobody ever asked me, what am I doing in Florida? How long am I going to be there? And who am I visiting?
No,
and then
you know what?
On top of that, they said they can only do that once a year. Said, well, we're going to give you a vacation waiver. I said, are you telling me I can only take one vacation? Now Obamacare is deciding how many vacations we can take.
Yeah, the only thing they used to do that for is narcotics, controlled substances, where someone wanted to travel and they needed a refill of their oxycodone or maybe Adderall for their ADD, and they're going to be out of the country, and they had to get it a week early. You had to write for vacation. We'll be on vacation.
I want both of those, by the way. But go ahead.
Yeah, so now for an antibiotic, it's dangerous to withhold that. So what they're doing is creating a dangerous situation. I mean, how do they know how many minutes matters between when you get the antibiotic? I mean, there's a certain point where you cross a threshold, and now taking the antibiotic doesn't even matter anymore. It's too late. Someone could die. And the same with prednisone, the anti-inflammatory for asthma. I've had people have their antibiotic and their prednisone and their inhaler for their asthma so they could breathe denied, and they wouldn't. The cash price was so exorbitant they couldn't afford it, and then they go till the next day, and maybe they end up in the emergency room being admitted to the hospital instead of being at home and back at work the next day, which costs all of us a ton of money, but also just the frightening thought of that happening where you cannot breathe, and you're in line for the pharmacy. You can't breathe. You can't think. You feel like you're going to pass out, and I'm sure we've all been in a similar position to that, and you just you can barely even think, and now they're saying you can't have the cure for what's wrong with you. So some CEO at Blue Cross or Blue Shield or whatever the hell it is can make a higher profit for this retirement
I was
fund.
so sick. I was so sick, doctor. I would have told them anything. I would have given up the location of El Chapo if I would have had it, because I was just really sick. I couldn't stand it anymore. And they're asking me, and I'm saying, why are you asking me these questions? Why do you got to know this stuff? Well,
okay,
it's
now
just,
you
we got to know it now.
All right. Now if you go give this speech to everyone in the country, you'll know what it's like to be a doctor. The feeling of being a doctor is exactly the feeling you went through. That's my everyday experience since Obama was in office, and prior to that, with the advent of HMOs, which I abandoned as soon as I could, because I thought they were unethical, and they are unethical. You know, making a profit at the cost of people's lives. I don't believe in that, and so I believe in making a profit to help people's lives get better. I don't believe in making a profit to deny medical care. I think that's evil. And it's at the root of HMO medicine. It was at the root of Kaiser, the way they used to practice. And now they're doing better, not great, but better. And all these big medical groups that they have this their mission statement to make somehow some lie about making your life better. It's not about making your life better. I've been to all these meetings. It's about making your life. It's about not killing too many people by accident while making their lives better financially. That's what that is, and I don't believe in that. That's private practice. That's why I do it.
I don't know if you were on hold or where you were when I was ranting at the beginning of the show, but I will tell you this. I'll tell you this right now, and you know what a big Ted Cruz guy I am. I would be remiss if I didn't mention it. I'm a regional director in California for Cruz 2016. So get out there and recruit people. Get out there and give this guy some support. Ted Cruz is the guy. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Now, having said that, I of course will support any Republican that is running against Hillary Clinton. So, if the Republicans get the White House, if they win the White House and they do not repeal Obamacare immediately, I'm not saying dismantling, I'm not saying tweaking, I'm not saying improving, I'm not saying this and that. And if they fund Obamacare for 2 seconds, guess what? Third party, no more Republican Party. That's it. And no Dr. Bronstein and no Scott Osborne are going to talk me out of it. Because these bastards have been saying they're going to repeal Obamacare since 2010, and now here's the chance. They've been able to defund it the whole time. The House of Representatives of this turncoat Paul Ryan and John Boehner and Mitch McConnell, all these so-called Republicans, to hell with you. That's what I say. To hell with you. Get on the program. Get on the stick. And let me tell you something. I love a lot of the things Donald Trump is doing right now, but he ain't going to repeal Obamacare. Donald Trump is not going to repeal. He wants a single payer. And you know, it's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to turn Obamacare into a single payer, not with a Republican Congress. So that ain't happening. Repeal Obamacare.
You're the one that taught me that. I felt that the Republican Party kicked me in the teeth when I started to vote Republican, and which was 10 years ago, and conservative. And I feel like I've just been kicked in the teeth over and just crawling up from my hands and knees, scraping off the dirt and getting kicked again in the teeth by the very people that promise salvation from the Democrats. The Democrats are doing, like you're the one that taught me, the Democrats are doing what they say they're going to do. It's the Republicans that are screwing everything up. They're not doing what they said they were going to do.
Right.
They're lying.
Yeah. Democrats are honest.
So picture my position. First I go from 45 years of left-wing liberal Democrat and everyone I knew. Now I finally see the light. See the light that the Republican Party is much better and the Conservative Party much better. Only to get kicked in the teeth in my own profession. Affect to the way it affects me to the core, when I go to the bank, to when I try to buy something, to when I try to raise my kids. It's killing me. They're killing me. They are killing my career, not the Democrats.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Since the Republicans took over in 2010, and as I said, when you take over the House of Representatives, you take over appropriations, which is a fancy way of saying spending. Every appropriation or tax bill or spending bill, it has to originate in the House of Representatives. That's per the Constitution, Article 1 of the Constitution. Now, they got around that somehow with Obamacare, but then the Republican Judge Roberts on the Supreme Court just kind of rewrote it. They said, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. He's got new Polaroids of me, so I'm not going to say it. And then the House of Representatives, they don't defund it. They, in fact, fund Obamacare. On October 13, 2013, they funded it. And then January the following year with the Ryan Murray budget, they fully funded Obamacare through, get this, through the year 2016. In other words, until after the election. Obamacare is fully funded. By who? By Republicans. By Republicans. Fully funded. What is wrong with these bastards? I'll tell you what's wrong with them. They love Obamacare because it's the greatest political issue since Watergate or the Vietnam War. And they just are pounding over the Democrats over the head with it, winning elections like prevents of the American public. They are a bunch of liars. Now, I'm not saying all of them. You got your Trey Gowdy as well. He's even going nuts lately. You got your Louis Gohmert. You got your Mike Lees. You got your Ted Cruz. I mean, there's some good people there. Don't get me wrong. But there's way, for every one of them, you got 5 Marco Rubios and John McCain's and Paul Ryan's. I'm sick of it. I am sick of cheering these guys on, people giving them their money, the grassroots rising up out of nowhere and getting these guys swept into office in these landslide historical victories. And what do? They turn tail and heck you in the A. Excuse my language, but like you say, kick you in the teeth. And now, all we got to do, we just got to get the White House, Dr. Mark. As long as we just get the White House. Let me remind you what happened last time the Republicans had the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. This is not ancient history. It's just back to 1990, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute. Excuse me. It's the year 2000. It's even closer than that. 2000, when George W. Bush was elected, we had the House, we had the Senate, we had the White House. What happened? They became the most profligate, drunken sailor spending in the history of the country. Now, let me ask you this. Since the Republicans took over the House of Representatives the year 2010, since then, they've taken over the Senate as well. Has spending gone up or down? Up or down? It's gone up. It's gone through the roof. Dr. Mark, what are you going to do? You're not going to turn into a real estate salesman, are you? You're going to keep being a doctor, aren't you?
I'll tell you, it's like a disease. Diseases shift. For example, most diseases responded to bacterial diseases responded to penicillin back in the early 50s and such, and then they developed resistance over time. So the strep throat of today isn't the same as the strep throat of 1950. Likewise, the Republican Party has some kind of a ethical drift or a philosophical drift toward becoming, it's like a riptide almost, or a drift in the ocean. It goes one way toward liberal, toward Democrat, and I have to invent a new conservative party and just call it, maybe it should just be called not the Republican or the Conservative Party. I don't know.
I've been thinking about that. Because there's already a conservative party, there's a Constitution party, there's a this party, there's a that party. I think, and you can go ahead and laugh. Go ahead, Scotty, laugh your ass off. I think it should be called Conover Party, and we can be Conovarians. What do you think about that?
Oh, boy.
I mean, having ovarian in that word doesn't sound too good, but I don't know.
Well, you make a point.
Conover. Ovarian seems like it'll be the butt of a bunch of jokes about ovaries or something, but I don't know. But
we might have to fold that into our platform. But the point is, we have to come up with a name, because if these guys, and I'm not kidding you, I love Ted Cruz. He's my guy. He's going to be president. I'm very excited. But if they do not repeal Obamacare, they flat out said they're going to repeal it. I mean, and now I hear this language. Have you been hearing the language? Yes, we're going to dismantle Obama. What?
Yeah.
I don't want to dismantle.
All
that sounds like
is
take a couple of tires off. What is that?
Yeah. Every time I hear the word dismantle, I feel like I'm being dismantled. Like my confidence in whatever they're going to do was dismantled. That's what happens unconsciously to me. It's a word that means nothing. It really, in politics, it means literally nothing. They're not specific enough. So that's a very vague term, and that's all it means. It's some vague concept that they're going to do something about Obamacare, but not specific.
You know how I know that the Republicans are up to no good again? Because they just passed a bill, and this is with Ryan, the speaker. They just passed this bill that and that's what they said up front. It defunds Planned Parenthood, and it dismantles Obamacare, and we're sending it to Barack Obama's desk. It's headed to his desk, and I'm going, what are you talking about? I grew up in America where on the network ABC they had Schoolhouse Rock, and then they had I'm Just a Bill. Everybody saw I'm Just a Bill, and I'm living there on Capitol Hill. Remember that? A bill doesn't go from the House of Representatives to the White House. It has to go to the Senate first. You dummies! And they're saying that they're going to dismantle. I gotta get Scotty, get that song I'm Just a Bill, and send it to Paul Ryan and say we're on to you, smart Alex.
Well,
anyway,
another thing I was thinking when you're talking about,
I got confidence that Donald Trump will dismantle Obamacare, and I'll tell you why. Because I think he's got a little buddy that he's been cohorting with that has already made him fully aware of why Obamacare has to go and why single payer doesn't work, and that is our Ted Cruz. And I'm going to tell you my dream, and then I'll pass it over to you, Doctor. Here's my dream, Rodney. My dream is Ted Cruz as president and Donald Trump as vice president, and I'll tell you why. Vice president, a lot of times you don't see him a lot. But one of the jobs of the vice president is to go down to the floor of the Senate. And I can see a Vice President Donald Trump heading his little butt down to that floor of that Senate all the time, encouraging people to watch. And I really think he's been the great negotiator. I think Ted Cruz as a president and Donald Trump running the Senate, I think we could actually totally demolish Obamacare and do a few other things that I think Ted Cruz would like to do, like get rid of the Department of Education, get rid of the IRS. I think a lot of those would be accomplishable with the great negotiator as vice president. So with that, I'll pass it back to you guys. Keep yakking.
Oh, I agree with you completely, Scotty. That's how I feel, too.
Well, that would be interesting.
Combination.
That would be interesting to see that ticket. They certainly do get along really well. I mean, certainly when you consider how Trump, kind of doesn't back down, which I love, doesn't back down going after the Republican nominees. And you'll notice he doesn't do that until he's attacked first, which I also love. I mean, if they leave, stupid goofball from Kentucky, Rand Paul, shouldn't his name be the other way around? Shouldn't his name be Paul Rand? Rand Paul doesn't sound right. Anyway, oddly enough, in a really sad case of irony, he is an eye doctor, and yet he can't see his own hair before he leaves the house in the morning. Kind of weird, if you ask me. And then the name. And then in the first debate, he comes out and he goes right after Donald Trump. What are you doing? Donald Trump is a man of the world. Do you know what I'm saying? This guy's been around.
Yep.
I think he's been in a bar fight or two. You know what I mean? I think he's been in a heated exchange a little bit more often than Rand Paul. And he goes after him, and Trump immediately just puts him right in the waist can. But I see him and Cruz getting along really well, don't you, Doc? Cruz and
absolutely.
Trump.
They're very I think they're like-minded. I think that Trump has that kind of energy, that personality, more like a Reagan or a John F. Kennedy or even Bill Clinton. They have these big personalities that can drive things forward, and people stop in their tracks when they see those people. I'm just worried that Ted Cruz doesn't have the big personality it takes. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, he's a lawyer, he's a litigator, and also let's keep in mind that he is a trained. He's a great debater. He's one of the greatest debaters in the history of the country. I mean, he was just like the king of all debaters at Yale or wherever he went to. Now, he's also argued, dozens of cases.
But people don't like to be out-debated. They don't like that. People like to play to the party.
That's what I'm getting at. People don't. It's a turnoff. It's a turnoff, and that, he needs to work on it, for sure. He's also used to litigating before the Supreme Court. Now, as I am told, when you talk to members of the Supreme Court, you have to talk very slowly and very, articulately, and just really talk. And that's why Ted Cruz kind of developed that style. And it's a little bit put-offish, I will admit. But he's getting a lot better. And let me tell you something else. When he's just winging it, he's great. And believe me, I've seen it up front and personal. I was at a meeting. There was only like 40 or 50 people there about a month ago in Beverly Hills. It was at, I might be doing this guy a disservice, but who's the famous chef there in Beverly Hills? He's all over the place now. Wolfgang Puck. It was in the back room. It was in the back room at Wolfgang Puck's at Beverly Hills. This secret little meeting. It was so cool that I was included on. And Ted Cruz was there. And it wasn't a fundraiser. It was just kind of like, hey, man, let's get together. And like I said, there was 30 or 40 people there. I had the best-looking date there, by the way. May I say that? And so he starts, instead of, giving us this campaign rhetoric, he just starts talking. He just starts bullshitting with us. And he started talking about how he met his wife, and he was telling these stories. And I went up to him and I said, man, that's how you gotta talk on the campaign trail, because people will love this. This is where it's at. The next thing I know, boys, there's a Ted Cruz commercial out, and he's talking about how he met his wife. Now, I'm not saying he's not taking the credit for that, but it was like, yeah, that's where you got to go with that, because it makes you real. And people hate lawyers, and they do. They just hate lawyers until they need one. Then all of a sudden they love lawyers. You know what's great about doctors, Doc, is when you get sick, you just like, oh man, I wish my doctor was here. So it's almost as important as your mom. I need my doctor. That's how I felt when I was in Florida. Where's Bronstein? Jesus, I'm all sick over here.
Yeah, I feel the same way when I'm sick. It's interesting. That's an interesting thing. Well, speaking of which, I have to go be there for a few people. They're waiting in the office already. But, again, I'm sorry about your dad, Rodney, and Scotty, your mom's anniversary of her death. And I guess I miss David Bowie a little bit, too, maybe.
Well, Doctor, my dad went to see Dr. Bronstein a couple times. And, Doctor, you couldn't have been any better for my dad.
He's a great guy.
Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next week, buddy. And if I don't talk to you between them, okay, there he goes, Doctor to the stars, Dr. Mark Bronstein. Scotty Osborne, did I talk too much during the doctor that time? I thought I did.
No, you did just fine, Rodney. Good conversation, though. I'm telling you, this primary season that a year ago we were talking about Hillary and what's his name, that guy down there in Florida. Had a brother in the White House, I think. And look what we're talking about today, and some of the topics that are put on. And I'll tell you, I want to show you another example of coordination between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. Now, they've already announced to everybody via the media that they're going to have to start attacking each other now, okay? It's like two best friends walking down the street. There's always somebody picking sides. Finally, all right, come on, let's duke it out for these guys so they make them happy, right? What is the first thing, Rodney, that they pick to to throw out there as a snowball from Donald Trump to Ted Cruz? What's the first thing they pick?
The birther thing?
The birther thing. The one thing that Ted Cruz really needs to come out right now, have a discussion, waylay the people that are just on the fringe, actual group of those birthers that don't think Ted Cruz is eligible is very tiny. It is very minute. But this is not a discussion we want to have during the general. Of all the things in the world, and did you see how the Ted Cruz campaign was prepared? All prepared to turn around and answer the question fully.
They've been prepared. They've been preparing us, meaning the regional directors and the precinct captains, the people down that we've recruited. They've been preparing us for months with the correct answer, the succinct, pithy answer to that. They knew it was coming, and you're absolutely right. Donald Trump is not attacking him. He's helping him. And
he did the exact same thing in Iowa, a few weeks back. I loved it with the Maniac conversation because Donald Trump created one of the questions in the debate, and CNN fell for it. They fell for
temperament. I know. Donald Trump is playing the media like the suckers that they are. They said, Donald Trump, you said that Ted Cruz doesn't have the temperament. And he was so ready. He just smiled, leaned over, put his hand on Ted Cruz and said, I've gotten to know this guy, and don't worry about this guy. He's okay. And it was the greatest moment. And I just wanted to be there so I could stand up and go, media, you are a bunch of idiots. You are a bunch of medieval, you're naive. I don't know. I can't find the words. I was just so happy. Anyway, it's amazing that you and I can see this unfold. But people in the media, even in the conservative media, I don't even see people in the conservative media saying, latching onto it. Maybe it's because we've known it for 6 months. I don't know.
That was my next question as well. As I don't understand why more people are not seeing it. Now it's blatant to me. I've been wishing that somebody would bring up the birther thing real big to get it out of the way myself, because it's got a really simple answer. But there really is few that really have a problem with that, and they generally just don't like Ted Cruz anyways.
Yeah, it's the people that don't like him anyway. And there's, and Rand Paul brought it up. What an idiot! I mean, what a dope. He needs to get out of there. I know Ron Paul. Ron Paul's a friend of mine, and Rand, you are no Ron Paul. That's all I got to say about you. I met Dr. Paul in Iowa last time around. I had never met him before, and I was with Mr. Kane. I was rolling with the Secret Service, Scotty. You should have seen me. And there was Dr. Paul, Ron Paul, which is Rand Paul's dad for people living under a rock. Sitting over there, not by himself, but he was kind of not really chatting anybody up. And so I went over, and I just sat down next to him and I go, "Hi, Dr. Paul, I'm a big fan." And he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I mean, he didn't know who I was, and he didn't know what camp I was with. I might have been with his camp for all he knows. And he's talked to me, and I said, "Yeah, I'm with Herman Cain, but I'm a big Ron Paul fan. I think you're the guy. You and Mr. Cain are the only two here who really stuck to your principles over the years. And you know it hurts you to." And he's like, "Yeah." And he said, we talked a little bit about him being a doctor, and I said, "Great, you can't have a conversation." I don't know this for a fact. I'm speculating here. But I bet you can't have a conversation like that with Rand Paul. What do you think? I think Rand Paul's a phony.
Oh, I agree.
I really do.
And I was never a Ron Paul presidential hopeful. I'm not really a Donald Trump presidential hopeful fan. But, man, you've got to have huge respect for the man on many levels. And I'll tell you what he would be, is he would be somebody that I'd pick as a friend. And that's a whole lot different than picking somebody that you want to send to the White House.
I'd put him as, honest to God, if I was president, Ron Paul would be Treasury Secretary. in 2 seconds. He's been talking about auditing the Fed before it was cool. He's been talking about stabilizing the dollar long before the crash of 2007. Ron Paul said it was coming. Said, here's the problem. You got a floating dollar. Let me ask you this, Scotty, because people are kind of confused about the price of a dollar, because that sounds crazy. Because you go, what are you talking about? The price of a dollar is a dollar. It sounds like where's who's buried in Grant's tomb? But it's not like that. The price of a dollar is not the price of a dollar. The price of a dollar means the value of a dollar. Oh, by the way, Scotty, I got to interrupt myself here. I'm over in northern Palmdale, and I can see Boeing testing some new planes. They're flying overhead. This is you guys should see this. When they have these test flights, you can tell they're test flights because the planes, they're not painted. They're that gray color, like a primer, like when you prime your car gray. They're all gray, but they're these gigantic planes. I mean, they're massive. They're like twice the size of a 747, and they float. They don't really fly. They float. I can't. It's the only way I can describe it. They just float around in circles, and it's kind of beautiful, and it's one of the few man-made things that are beautiful in life. To airplanes, I believe. Airplanes are one of the things that man has made that mocks nature the best, I think. Anyway, I just saw one fly right over my head. It's really great. Anyway, I can't remember what I was talking about, but it was something about, here's the thing with the dollar. A dollar does not cost a dollar. A dollar is measured by the value of the dollar. And it is determined by a number of factors, and it floats. And when I say float, that means some days, it's worth 98 cents. Some days it's worth $1.10. And it disrupts business. If you don't have a stable dollar, it really screws up the businessman, especially the small businessman. I'll give you an analogy. What if an hour was not always 60 minutes? What if the government or some outside entity like the Fed with the government's approval, what if an hour on one week was 45 minutes long and the next week was 2 hours long? You couldn't do business, Sky. I mean, you wouldn't know how to hire people. You wouldn't know what basis to hire them on. You wouldn't know when to open your doors. You wouldn't know how to market to your customers. Hey, we're open from 9 to 5, or hey, we're this, we're that. You couldn't do. You could. You'd be in business still, but it wouldn't be as effective. You'd be less competitive, and yet that's what we do with the dollar. We tell meaning the government through the Federal Reserve, tells people what the dollar is worth. It floats, and the reason it floats is because it's not based on anything. It doesn't have a standard. And I'm not all about the gold standard. I don't care about that. Let's just find a standard and stick to it. Because if you do not stabilize the dollar, you give the Federal Reserve the power to screw everybody, and they've been doing it for 50 years. Now, the economy goes up and down. There's nothing you can do about that. You can try all you want to stabilize the economy. There's going to be good times and bad times. And both, believe it or not, in a capitalist society, both are good. Good times are good for obvious reasons, and bad times are good. Why are bad times good, Rodney? I'll tell you why. You need to have a recession every once in a while because it makes you stronger as a nation. Because when there's a recession, businesses, large and small, take a good introspective look at themselves, and they ask, do we really need this product line? Do we really need this extra building? Do we need all these employees that are terrible workers? Do we need an extra secretary? Do we need to? And they start cutting the fat. That's what happens in recession. And you know what? You think, oh, well, that's cruel. because, Rodney, you want to fire a bunch of people. Well, you know what happens to those people that get fired? They either learn their lesson and start working harder, or B, they start their own business. You know how many businesses in this nation have been started by somebody that got fired and said, well, screw you, I can do it better than you. They start their own businesses successful. Happens all the time. I mean, you hear about it constantly. I got fired from IBM. There's a good, what's his name that invented Microsoft? What's his hell? Help me out here. Gates.
Bill Gates.
Yeah, he was with IBM. And he went out on his own, started Microsoft in 1977 with that other dude, Paul Allen, whatever his name is. And boom, the next thing you know, everybody has Windows. Do you know that IBM could have had Windows? I mean, he was right there. They said, nah, they said that the personal computer was bullshit. Nobody's going to want a computer for themselves. Of course, this is back when the Cray computer took up a whole room. But anyway, my point is this. Everybody can understand fully the effect on America if the government told you how long an hour was and it changed all the time. It would be terrible. Well, they do the same thing with the dollar. And it's just almost as devastating. And what happens is the middle class gets screwed because during good times, the big business really makes out well. But the Federal Reserve uses interest rates, to slow down the economy, to slow down growth, and it stifles wages. Over the last 50 years, wages have not gone up. As a result, the middle class, they participate in the recession. They participate fully in recession and depression, but they don't participate in the good times. And that's what the problem is with the dollar. Did that, honestly, Scotty, did that come out? And am I making myself clear?
You gave me so much to say because you said that eloquently.
Did I quote prophecy?
I'm going to get to that in a second, but you quoted that so perfectly. I'm going to clip that out of the show. I'm going to send it to Rich Lowry. Because that's basically what Rich Lowry's saying, and you laid it out to where anybody could understand it. But not only did you quote Scripture, Rod, you preached an entire Sunday morning sermon.
Well, pass the collection plate. I need that
foundational principle that we learn from the Bible, the one big thing about life that we learn from the Bible, is that you were born, you have hurdles, and you die. It's the hurdles and the problems in life that make you stronger. If you have an easy life, you end up weaker. And the concept of refinement, and that's refining gold is prevalent in the Bible. The concept of refining by fire. And it applies to the economy. It is secular, just like warming and cooling is secular. The liberals just don't get these natural cycles. They have a hard time with the cycle concept, I think. But economies have a cycle. They have a natural cycle. And you don't want the federal government trying to fix anything to start off with. It is not anything you can fix. You just have to get ready for it. Weather does the same thing. Sometimes in California, it looks like you might be coming out of the drought. I think you're going to flood off into the ocean. 4 months ago, we were talking about they were going to have to declare a national emergency and empty something into Lake Mead or something. But it goes in cycles, and it applies to the human being in the personal life in the New Testament. The same concept. It's sometimes you go through tough times, but that's when you draw back. If it's financially, that's when you cut back on some things. You work on trying to figure out ways of making a little bit more money. It applies to the individual. It applies to society. It applies to a business. It applies to the church. The church does the same thing. The church goes through hard times. And that's when you gain your strength. And you've got three types of people in this world in dealing with these hurdles. And the hurdles, some of them are natural. You got to learn to eat and you got to learn to talk. Some of them you've put in front of yourself, and some other people put in front of you. There's three kinds of people, Rodney, and this is the lesson that you just preached. There's the kind of people that jump their hurdles. And in the end of life, they are strong. There are the people that constantly cry in front of their hurdles. And then there is the socialist liberal Democrat who would like government to come in and either remove the hurdle or pick you up by your jock strap and lift you up over the hurdle. And whenever you remove all the hurdles of society, and all you got to do is look to Cuba to see what happens, you have a weak society. We don't want to get rid of all the problems in life. And it's the left. The left does that with everything, Rodney. That's why they go after guns. The tiny little fraction of problems that we actually have with all of the guns we got in this country, but they're going to solve. They're going to sanitize the world of its problems, and in doing so, they're going to fix everything for everybody else as well. Very, very nicely, thank you. And the same thing with Obamacare. The same mentality. They're going to solve the world's problem. They're going to fix everything. And they're going to use government to do it. Even if you can fix the problem, folks, you don't want government doing it. You want government protecting you, and you want the federal government doing what the 10th Amendment guaranteed them to have, the tiny little powers they've got. You want the rest at the state level, and you want to mute the state a lot, too. There you go, Rodney. You didn't just quote Scripture, my friend. You absolutely gave. That could have been a Sunday morning sermon.
Well, I have to thank you, number one, but I have to cop to the fact that, John Lowry was on Rich Lowry, excuse me. Rich Lowry was on my team a couple of years ago, and all I learned about the dollar and the Fed, I learned from Rich Lowry. So it's no coincidence that I sounded a lot like Rich Lowry, because in fact I spent hours and hours and hours and hours at the feet of Rich Lowry learning exactly about it. Now, he tell you this, Rich Lowry gave me a great compliment one day. He said, "You've managed to take an hour-long discussion about the dollar and distill it down to 2 minutes." He goes, and that's really what you have to do in politics. You have to take these giant, complicated, and that was my goal, was to take everything Rich Lowry had taught me. And believe me, it's complicated. I mean, it is. I don't remember half of it, but I was able to take the bullet points of how the floating dollar affects this country so negative. I mean, what's really bad, Scotty, is who it affects. It's not so much. I mean, it is bad. It affects everybody badly, but the people that it really affects badly is the middle class. When Democrats scream class wages have not gone up in 50 years, they're right. I mean, they're right. Even a clock, broken clock is right twice a day, right? Unless it's one of those digital ones and it just blinks, like Bernie Sanders. But he's never right. But it's free college. We got that going for us. Anyway, I forgot what I was going to say because I was trying to go for a joke there. But the point is, it hurts the middle class, and the Democrats are right about that. But the Democrats offer no solution. And, right now the Republicans offer no solution. I don't hear anybody talking about stabilizing the dollar, and of course I know the reason. They don't talk about stabilizing the dollar because people's eyes glaze over. They just glaze over. And I don't blame them, man. It's a tough subject to tackle. But let me tell you, if you're unhappy with the amount of money you're making per hour, do you know how many, there's a lot of women in the workforce. And I've always said, if you're a woman and you want to work, get out there and work. Have at it. But I'll tell you what, if I was a woman, I'd find a man and not work. I'd have kids and raise kids. I mean, I would, if that's what you want to do. And this idea, and I'm not against women working. Listen, I'd rather have a female boss than a male boss. I really would. And women are every bit as talented as men. They just think differently. I mean, they're better at certain jobs, and men are better at certain jobs, and men are a little bit more analytical, and women are more, empathetical, or if that's a word. In any event, we're different. But here's the point I was going to make. If real wages went up, There is a ton of women in this country that would stop working and go home and raise their kids, which is what a lot of them want to do anyway. And don't call me a sexist. Screw you, okay? Women love raising kids. They do. Of course they do. You know, argue with that? Going to say, oh, I'm a sexist? Yeah, well, screw you. I am a sexist in that way, but women are sexist in that way, too. Of course you want to raise your kids. Kids need their mommy. A man can't raise a 3-year-old kid. I mean, he could, but he can't do it nearly as well as a woman. He doesn't have patience. And that, you know, I mean, except for Scott Osborne, who's the lone exception to this rule. But even Scotty, you have raised little kids, and even you will admit, you know, women are pretty good at it.
Oh yeah, definitely, and my sister has always been there, so it's been definitely, we're congruent. My sister and I both give them different things that are sometimes the same, sometimes different, but we always try and work together. Our strengths and our weaknesses, Stacy and I, in raising them. You know, we rely on each other. You're better at this than I am. Just go do it, please. And it really does. You quoted scripture again, Rodney. You are on a roll tonight. We're gonna send you out on the road. These kids today are they know they're loved. And they know they're loved because around this household, we do things based on a lot of common sense. We make sure that they have boundaries. The kids need boundaries. They love you more for boundaries. We get bonus points for that, see. And it really is another basic tenet in life, that as the left wants to make everything equal. It's not supposed to be. My sister and I aren't supposed to be equals. The 3 girls aren't supposed to be equals. I work with them both on their strengths and their weaknesses, and their strengths and their weaknesses are all different. But as you could put those 3 sisters together and they make a mighty team. That's the way men and women are supposed to work. See, the left has always wanted to make women have every single job a man can have. Well, oftentimes it's been the man that's been supporting a family, including a woman. and there's always been reasons for the head of a house. Now, that doesn't mean a woman can't be the head of a house and chase after that same kind of money. But it's all based on a system of working your way up. You know, we all work. I worked at Domino's Pizza, Rodney, when I was 16. Where was your first job?
I worked at Mr. Steak. It was a steak joint. I did dishes, and I was eventually a cook's assistant, but mainly I did dishes.
That's right. And you know what? You weren't equal with the cook, but you were congruent. No. You were important to the cook, and the cook is important to you. You take either one of you out of the setup, you're in trouble. And the left always make everything equal. It isn't always equal. Life isn't always fair. What you have to look at is you have to look at, you know what, they want to compare rich to poor. You got to compare the poor in this country to the poor in the rest of the world and the poor throughout history. And you'll find out that things are fair. Things are really fair for the poor people in this country.
You know, I got paid $1.16 an hour my first job, and that was, you know, that was not part-time wages. That was wages. $1.16 per hour. And let me tell you, buddy, when I got my check, we got paid once a month. We didn't get paid every other week because probably the checks wouldn't even be big enough to bother with. But when I got my check at the end of the month, or at the beginning of the month, whatever it was, I was a rich man, my friend.
Oh, wow.
I had $25 in my pocket. My car cost, $4.80 to fill up with gas, and that baby was good to go for the week. And man, oh man, of Chevets, was that good stuff. That was freedom. That was freedom. People who think otherwise are either idiots or they're fascists, one of the two.
Right.
because that is a social welfare program right there, a job where you get paid.
That's
and
right.
You have freedom, and you got a little change in your pocket, and you can maybe hit on one of the hostesses. Wait a minute, I went too far there.
Oh, roll tonight. We're gonna put you sure.
I'm just sick to my stomach. I'm sorry, I just can't get over this Obamacare thing. I'm just sick to my stomach. What happened in Florida? We've been talking about it forever, right? We've been talking about what Obamacare really is. We've been talking about what Common Core really is. But this is the second or third time, and maybe this is the charm. This is the third time I have been, dumped over my head with ice water by Obamacare. First, I lost my doctor, Dr. Bronstein. Then I lost my insurance, which I had for 10 years. I'm in United Healthcare. I loved my insurance policy. Joe Biden said it was a crappy policy. Remember that? Crappy insurance. You're going to get good insurance now. I'm like, what? And then when I was in Florida and trying to get that prescription filled, and they're asking me personal questions. They're asking me to fill a prescription. They are asking me questions that have nothing to do with me being sick. Who are you visiting? Who are you visiting? How long are you going to be there? When did you get that? What? What the hell business is it of yours? They're tracking my movements, and now I'm reading everywhere where they're, the doctors at the VA, they're denying, senior citizens their Second Amendment rights. You have to be an idiot not to see what this is about. I mean, you have to be just an ideologue, just a fool, or you know exactly what it's about, and it fits in with your personal philosophy, which is crazy, because here you are living in America. You want America to be like somewhere? Let me tell you, I've been all over the world, Scotty. Now, granted, I haven't been running guns in Grenada, but I've been all over the world, including the Middle East and everywhere else. And it sucks. It's way better here. Now, I'm not saying America's perfect. We got some problems. We got some, I drive around and I see the way they develop some cities, and I hate it. And, there's things about capitalism that just turn your stomach. But overall, you got to be kidding me. First of all, everything works. You ever been to a foreign country and nothing works? You're describing just about every foreign country, including Canada. You know what? I used to go to Mexico when I was younger, spring break and all that. You couldn't pay me to step foot in Mexico unless I wanted some, prescription drug for hair growth or something. There's no way I am going to Mexico. That place is a hellhole. You want to, we're so proud of their culture. Nobody's proud of their culture down there. They want the hell out. And you show me a successful Canadian, I'll show you an American. Oh, Rodney, you're just a rah-rah patriot. Yeah, I guess I am. I guess I am a rah-rah patriot. And what built this country? What built this country? I'll tell you what built this country. Free market capitalism. That's what built this country. Being allowed to fail is just as important as being allowed to succeed. Am I right? You don't send a kid out there let's say they're playing tennis or they're on a volleyball team or some sort of sports. You don't send them in there with a guaranteed trophy, okay? You send them in there with the ability to fail, to fall flat on their face. Because
right.
that is way more important than getting a trophy for winning. Don't you think? Am I off here?
You are exactly right, Rodney. It's wonderful to win trophies, and it's wonderful to make goals and achieve them. But it's far more important to lose. You learn a whole lot more from losing growing up. And again, you brought up another one, and they all fit the pattern, whether it be Obamacare, Second Amendment, Common Core is another example of where there is a mentality of on the left of if they remove all the hurdles, if they make every everything fair, then everything will be all right. And so they want to make everything equal. They want to make every single child on the face of the earth learn the same thing, so that everybody's got an equal chance. Which it does the same thing as Obamacare. It stops a teacher from being able to teach, just like Obamacare stops a doctor from being able to be a doctor. You know, Dr. Brownstein sometimes brings me almost to tears, Rodney, because I hear within his voice so often, he just wants to be a doctor. You know, he just wants to do what he knows how to take care of his patients. He just wants to get in there and heal them. And we're destroying that. Obamacare is destroying that. Common Core is destroying its own thing. You know, of course, the Second Amendment issues have been going on for a long time, but it's nuts. You're preaching tonight, Rodney.
Buddy, I'll tell you something else. The three things I wanted to talk about, actually just two things, and one I've already talked about, and that is if they don't, I'm telling you, Scotty, get ready because I'm not listening to you anymore. I'm cutting you off. If they don't repeal Obamacare, if a Republican gets in the White House and they do not absolutely tear Obamacare out by its roots, I'm not talking about dismantling. I'm talking about getting rid of it. I don't care if it's by executive action. I don't care if it's by congressional legislation. I don't care if it's by voodoo. If they don't get rid of Obamacare, Scotty, third party. And I don't want to hear any arguments from you. I don't want to hear any of your lip if they don't repeal Obamacare 100%, okay? And that's the truth. Now, I can make you, number two, you heard that. I know I didn't quote scripture there, and I'm not angry, and I'm not mad, and I'm not disappointed that you talked me out of it last time. It was the right thing. You talked me out of it. But you're not talking me out of it this time, pal.
I'll be on board with you, Rodney. As soon as you show me we can win. If there's a path to the win, I'm all for it.
Okay, well, here's the second thing. Now, we've talked about this, and Donald Trump was questioned on this many, many times about will you support the Republican nominee no matter who it is? Will you support the Republican nominee no matter who it is? I got to tell you, I'm rethinking that. Now, you got to hold on here because I got to order breakfast, okay? Everyone's going to hear me order. I'm going real healthy today. Listen to this one. Hold on.
Good morning. Thank you for choosing us. May I please hold?
Sure.
Thank you.
They put me on hold. Here's my second thing. Not only am I going third party, full retard third party, if they don't repeal Obamacare, and I'm talking about right away. I'm talking that thing will be repealed by March of 2017. Hold on a second. I will have the Polish sausage and eggs breakfast sandwich.
Polish sausage and breakfast sandwich. Anything else?
No tomato.
Okay.
And light on the mayonnaise.
Anything else?
And a coffee.
Coffee.
Yeah.
Regular decaf.
Regular coffee, just black.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, so we have one Polish sausage and egg breakfast sandwich, easy on the mayo, no tomato, with black coffee. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you.
Under the window.
Okay, that's the breakfast of champions right there, pal. Polish sausage and eggs. Anyway, here's my second thing. I'm rethinking this. Support the Republican nominee no matter what. I know that you're going to be mad at me for this, but I'm rethinking it. And I'll tell you, I'm going to come out with an article at Joe for America. I would be remiss if I didn't mention to everybody, you got to go to joeforamerica.com today. There are so many awesome articles up there. You're gonna just fall over. I wrote, this guy named Baron von Goenhoven, I almost said me, wrote an article about what might be an imminent, believe it or not, of Hillary Clinton. I mean, it's like really well laid out. I know you think that's crazy too, but go to joeforamerica.com and read it. I'm beginning to rethink this thing. I do not know why we would support Jeb Bush if he gets the nomination. And I'll tell you why. The last time there was a Bush as president and a Republican Congress and Senate, they laid the foundation for Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, and Barack Obama. Let me say that again. The election of George W. Bush in the year 2000, the election of George W. Bush, combined with a Republican Senate majority and a Republican House majority, laid the foundation, caused the rise to power of Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, and Barack Obama. Now, Scotty, disagree with me on that. Try to disagree with me on that, because that's what happened.
You know what,
5
Ronnie?
years later.
Now, I would never vote for the other side, and I would always vote for my own side. But I will say this, and you're quoting Scripture again, and it applies to what we're discussing, and it also applies to the church. Sometimes it's better to lose.
You know what? I can make you a case, and I will lay out a case in a column very soon that this country is better off with a Republican House and Senate and Hillary Clinton as president than Jeb Bush as president. I can lay you out. You know why? Because then the Republicans would be on the attack. Then they would have to shape up. Then they would have to do the right thing. Does that sound familiar? Does anyone remember the 90s? What got done? What got accomplished in the 90s? My word.
Yeah.
And if Jeb Bush is president, not only will Obamacare not be repealed, it will be set in stone. Common Core will start wiggling its tentacles through the country. Spending will go through the roof. You'll have amnesty. Now tell me why I should vote for Jeb Bush if he's the nominee. Give me a good reason why I should support him. There isn't any. So no, I am not going to support the nominee, Republican nominee, no matter who it is. I'm not going to do it, Scotty.
Well, there is a case to be made that we might be better off if Hillary Clinton won this and we retained power in Congress, especially the strength. And, she would be a different presidency. But here's the thing. If I'm making a choice between the two, and I've got Hillary Clinton heading in one direction, and I've got Jeb Bush heading in the same direction, but Hillary's in a Maserati and Jeb's on a bicycle, then I'm going to pick Jeb. Even though he's going in the wrong direction, I'm going to pick the guy that's going slow.
But that's not true. Even though he's going slower, he's setting the table for someone even more evil than Hillary Clinton. That's the point I'm trying to make.
And that's a case for what happens when you lose. I don't think I want to hand it to the liberals again for another 8 years. They're too used to using executive orders. I think you've got to get somebody in there. Listen, Jeb Bush has always been at the bottom of my ticket. Bottom, at the very bottom. But I will say this about Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush's record is a social conservative and an economic conservative, and that of one of a very progressive liberal when it comes to sovereignty issues. That's why he's talked on Common Core. And I'd much rather have Jeb Bush going slow than Hillary Clinton going where we have no idea. We had no clue Barack Obama was going to take us this far. Who knows how far Hillary could take us? And we'll strengthen our majorities. We might get bulletproof majorities in the House and Senate if Hillary is elected. Can you imagine I agree.
Can you imagine the election of 2018? Can you imagine that election if Hillary's president? My God, this country will rise up and make the House and the Senate 100% conservative. I'm not talking about Republican either. I'm talking about conservative. Get in there and really, really start fixing things and get after her and force her hand, just like Newt Gingrich did with Bill Clinton. Let's face it. all of those things that Bill Clinton took credit for, that was a conservative Republican majority in Congress that did every single one of them. And if you don't think Hillary wants that same legacy, you ain't been paying attention. I'm not talking about you. I'm telling you the royal use of the word you. Hillary wants, more than anything, a legacy. She wants her turn. And if she had a Republican Congress, that would be best for her, too. Because then every good thing they did, she could take credit for. The economy comes roaring back, she takes credit for it. The budget that gets balanced, she takes credit for it. Welfare reform, immigration reform, she takes credit for it. And let me tell you what's going to happen. If Jeb Bush, you say that Jeb Bush will be on a bicycle and she'll be on a Maserati, I disagree wholeheartedly. And the reason I disagree is, you don't remember the years 2000 through 2005? Do you think that George Bush was on a bicycle? They were the most prolific spenders, creators of debt and deficit country has ever seen. They were number one. They didn't reform entitlements. They invented entirely new entitlements. They were in a Maserati, Scotty. He was not on a bicycle, and Jeb Bush won't be on a bicycle either. Maybe he won't be on a Maserati, but he's not going to be on a bicycle. And you know what it's going to set the stage for? You think Barack Obama's bad? A Jeb Bush presidency, a disaster, in my opinion, because he's going to let these Republicans run wild with their spending and their crony capitalism. And we see it right now with the Paul Ryan budget. You don't have to look any further than the Paul Ryan budget, okay? What in dollars and spending? My God, these are the guys that are supposed to cut spending. What is going on here? A Jeb Bush presidency would lay the foundation for Bill Blasio to be president, okay? That's what it would lie, or Bernie Sanders. That's the foundation Jeb Bush would like. So this is my reasoning for not supporting him. And I'm not, I'm just bringing this up to get your reaction.
Well, and boy, you make a strong case, Rodney, and I do, and it's why he's always been at the bottom of my barrel by a long shot. And when you look at the Clintons, that is a big difference between Hillary and Barack Obama. I don't think really Barack Obama's cared about his legacy. I really don't. You can't, because he's done some things that are going to really end up backfiring after he's gone, and he's just gone that way. But the Clintons always did, and I always gave Bill Clinton credit as a Democrat. He was no Barack Obama by a long shot, and I had some issues with the direction he took the morality of this country and the national security ramifications that he could have involved this country in. But he really did let the Republicans be strong and guide the economy. And he was very bright.
When he was elected in 1992, he had a Democrat Congress majority, Senate and House majority Democrat. Bill Clinton came in 1992, became president. What did he do in 1993? They passed the largest tax increase in the history of the country. So I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what you're talking about in this one. They passed the largest tax increase in the history of the country, and they tried to illegally pass socialized medicine. Okay, so right out of the gate, Bill Clinton was every bit as bad as Barack Obama. Maybe, we weren't talking about trillions back then, but it's all relative. The same thing. Largest tax increase in the history of the country, and passing socialized medicine illegally. Hillary Care was illegal. That's why it didn't get passed, if you'll remember. So I don't buy this Bill Clinton thing. In 1994, the American public stood up and was another historic election, swooped in Newt Gingrich and all the Republicans. It was unbelievable. But that was in reaction. Hold on a second. I got to pick up my eggs.
Hi, Paloma Sausage?
Yes. Woman just called me a Polish sausage, I think. Anyway, so I don't know if I agree with you on that one. I think Bill Clinton left to his own devices.
He had huge issues. But if you look at his whole presidency, I'll tell you, next to Barack Obama is no administrator. He's no executive. Bill Clinton, at least, and when it came to the protocol of being an executive in an office, he was good at that. And I'll tell you, there's just so many things. He worked with a whole lot more, and he had his big issues. We know he did, but he also got his hand slapped and spent a lot of time really being a whole lot better than what we've had in the last years of Barack Obama, who's just taken it into his own hands and signed executive order after executive order after executive order. And I don't think the Clintons will abuse that executive order quite as bad. I think because of legacy. But I bet you that they use it to their advantage.
I concede the point that Bill Clinton did not act illegally with executive order. I concede that point. You're right. Bill Clinton respected the rule of the Constitution when it comes to the separation of powers. I will concede that point to you. Barack Obama is much more evil in that he does not believe in the Constitution, even though supposedly he's a constitutional lawyer, I keep hearing. Somebody who's a constitutional lawyer that knows very little about the Constitution, either that or he knows everything about it and really doesn't care. I'll concede that point to you. But I don't know about Hillary. I think she's a different dog, no pun intended.
Oh,
I
definitely.
think Hillary will.
Definitely.
I think she will use that executive power, maybe not to the extent of Barack Obama, maybe not. But I think she will use it, and I don't think she's going to be. I don't think she's going to be a Bill Clinton. I really don't. I think Hillary is a crook at heart.
Oh yeah.
I think she's a liar and a crook at heart, and this is the one place where I think she's different from Bill.
Oh, definitely.
I don't believe Bill Clinton is a crook at heart. I think he is what he is. He's a horn dog, but okay, That aside, him being a horn dog, I don't think he's a crook at heart. Now, I do think he's done some crooked things, but I don't think at his core he's a crook and a socialist.
Right.
I don't believe that. I believe Hillary Clinton, at her core, is a crook, a liar, a phony, and a socialist. I think she's a committed socialist. And I don't think Bill Clinton was. I just think Bill Clinton was a horny, Democrat, basically. And when it came time for his legacy, Bill Clinton looked at that and said, "You know what?" Said, "I got to balance the budget." And he didn't do things on his own.
No.
Okay. Like let's just take balance the budget. Let's take that. Balance the budget and welfare reform. Those are two really, really big things that happened when Bill Clinton was president, if you'll remember. Budget it didn't really get balanced. It's phony because they used the Social Security Trust. But the budget got balanced and welfare reform, which worked, by the way. It worked. That both of those happened under Bill Clinton, but people don't remember how it happened. Let's take the balanced budget. The Republicans came to Bill Clinton with a balanced budget, and they had passed it. And Bill Clinton vetoed it. Okay, a couple of months later, they came back to him with another one, another balanced budget. He vetoed it, and the nation got pissed off. The Americans were just really, really mad. And the Democrat Party, members of his own party, came to Bill Clinton, and they said, "Dude, if you veto another balanced budget, and we're going to help the Republicans override it." And it wasn't until then, Scotty, that they brought a third balanced budget to Bill Clinton, and he signed it. And then he took credit for it. And the same thing happened with welfare reform. That was his Sister Souljah moment. Remember that? All of a sudden he was for welfare reform. Because he knew the writing was on the wall, man. And he zigged and zagged, and he said, "You know what? My legacy is going to be balancing the budget, making the economy strong." And what people don't realize is it has nothing to do with Bill Clinton. And guess what? It had nothing to do with the Republican Congress either. Newt Gingrich and John Kasich standing up there taking credit for the economy. That's a joke. It was the tax credits of the 80s that freed up the capital, that let the American entrepreneur run wild in the 90s. That's what made the economy roar. But
That's right.
People don't know that. People don't know that. Why? Because they're stupid. Because people are ignorant. People don't take 5 minutes to sit down and figure out how the economy works. They don't even know how a bill gets passed because they're not. Because kids aren't watching I'm Just a Bill on Saturday morning. I don't know what they're doing. They're playing video games where they do nothing but shoot each other. And then these video game makers go, it doesn't do nothing to the culture. Well, really? Take a look. There's violence everywhere. Or maybe it's just being reported on now. Maybe I'm all wet on this. But I tell you what I'm not wet on, and that is the facts of political history. Because guess what? I was there. We'll be right back. Do we have any sponsors yet, Scott?
No sponsors yet, but we're doing all right. Let me tell you, Rodney, there's the other side of this that we haven't discussed yet. And if you go back to Jimmy Carter, he gave us Ronald Reagan. And right. I really believe we're not going to have to worry about Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush is like in 4th and 5th place or worse in every primary poll over the next 3 months. There's a lot of them that could jump up there and beat down Trump or Cruz. I think Jeb Bush is probably the least likely. But I'll tell you, I think a Ted Cruz presidency with a Donald Trump vice presidency would be the next Reagan era. And you've got two men fully understand.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That fully understand the concept of constitutionality and understand the concept of business and live free market. As many meetings as I know that Ted Cruz has had with Donald Trump over this last year, I know that Donald Trump, I know Ted Cruz, I know Texas, I know the Texas that's in Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz has explained to Donald Trump exactly why the Constitution matters, why you don't want the federal government doing a whole lot. All of these issues we talk about, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind, Rodney, because I know Ted Cruz, and I know what he's about, and I know what kind of guy he is. He has been having discussions with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump has had a lesson in conservatism over the last 9 months. With that?
Oh, totally. Couldn't agree more. But I could not agree with you more on that. But I warn you, Scotty, do not underestimate. Don't underestimate it. Because when Chris Christie drops out, all of his supporters go to Jeb Bush. When Ben Carson drops out, some of his supporters will go to George Bush. The other two will be split up between Trump and Cruz. When Carly drops out, all of her support goes to Jeb Bush. If Marco Rubio drops out, and I don't think he will, but if he does, most of his support, believe it or not, goes to Jeb Bush. Do not count out Jeb Bush. He's got the money, he's got the legs, and you can say he's running a crappy campaign, and he is, but it doesn't matter. He's got the campaign. Don't count him out. And at the end of the day, you see what the establishment is doing. They're trying to get Rubio or Bush elected. That anybody can see that. They do not want Trump. They do not want Cruz. They don't want to have anything to do with him. So just don't count him out. That's all. And I don't support Jeb Bush for president.
I counted him out 9 months ago. I had him on the mat at count 10 9 months ago. So I still got him counted out. He's always been counted out. I just don't see how anybody even does it, Rodney. You know, he has spent as much on advertising as all the other top candidates combined. And he's sitting at if he was sitting like at 10%, I'd agree with you, Rodney. But he's sitting at like below 4, below 3 in some places. Nationally, he's below 5. There's just so many others. I think a Chris Christie. Oh yeah, I think Chris Christie's got an incredible chance to take and make an establishment run. But I don't think Jeb's got a chance. I think he's wasting his time.
You're the same guy that said Hillary was not going to run, though.
Yeah, but all the reasons why I said she wasn't going to run, she's messing with. I still don't think she wanted to run.
I'm just giving you crap, buddy.
Who would, if you were Hillary Clinton, would you want to run? I mean, serious. Would you want to run through all of the pig slop that they're going to run through over the next year? Rehashing all that again? I wouldn't want to do it. Of course, you couldn't get me to run for dog catcher. That's why I would prefer to have a close friend who is running, and I can give them my shoulder all they need. You couldn't get me to run for dog catcher, Rodney. When I first got here to Texas, Michael Smith of CNR Radio kept trying to talk me into becoming a delegate or to be a chairperson or something. And I told him, I'm not getting involved in all that. There is no way, Rodney, you can get to do it.
Well, when you say, if I was Hillary Clinton, would I want to run? Dude, she's already been through it. I mean, the reason she went through it was her own political aspirations. The reason she put up with all of that. So to not run, to me, would have been to waste all that crap that she's been through, the weathering all that storm. Are you kidding me? She's been running since she was kicked out of the Watergate investigation. She's been, every move that she's made has been for this moment. This is her deal. Yeah. And you know what? She's going to be the Democrat nominee. Will people stop talking about Bernie Sanders? He's in there for one reason. To make her look younger, less crazy, less socialist, and I don't know what else, but he's doing a hell of a job.
Yeah. Well, Rodney, you know what, and I agree with you 100% on that. I think it's exactly why he's running. I think they made a miscalculation, though, that they don't know how to deal with now. And that's Bernie Sanders that's turned into a Ron Paul. And, much as I disagree with Bernie Sanders, as a guy, when you listen to him, you got to like him. I totally disagree with him. I think his whole foundation of everything he believes is wrong. But he's turned into their Ron Paul, and I'm going to tell you, they got some vitriol against Hillary Clinton.
I was like you up until last week. I like Bernie Sanders. I like him being honest. I liked, the way he spoke. I don't agree with a single thing he says. But I changed my mind over I think it was Friday or Thursday, and I'll tell you why. He went on Larry Wilmore's on Comedy Central. It's supposed to be a, kind of a centrist comedy show, which is a joke. And I know Larry. I've known him for 25 years. He had Bernie Sanders on. And Bernie Sanders called Donald Trump dumb. He said Donald Trump was dumb. And he was asked to clarify that. He goes, you mean dumb ideas? No. He himself is dumb. Have you ever looked at Donald Trump's education and pedigree? He is one of the smartest. He is one of the smartest people in America. I mean, you may not like him. You may not like his personality. You may not like his philosophy. You may not like his choice, his life choices. There's a lot of things you may not like his style, his taste, but he is not dumb.
No.
I mean, when Bernie Sanders said that,
right,
and then he doubled down on it, and he said, no, he's dumb.
Yeah, I got to push a button.
Oh, push a button. I'm ready. That's better. Man, that was some loud introduction music. But for the next person on the show, Jennifer from the college.
Gentlemen.
Are you there?
I am here.
What's happening? I haven't talked to you in forever.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yes, happy 2000. Jennifer.
Is this the year we do it? Is this the year we make America great again?
It is.
Are you still in love with Trump?
I think we're going to do it.
You know what? I mean, if you'll build me a wall, I'll be in love with whoever you want, right? Just build a freaking wall already. Gosh.
I'll be right over. I gotta go to the Home Depot, and then I'll be right over with a bunch of sticks. Are you? Have I got you over to Ted Cruz yet, or are you still with Trump?
Oh no, I totally love Ted Cruz too. I really don't know who's going to get my primary vote. I was unfortunate this whole brouhaha with his birth certificate and everything, but he's great. I mean, he is. I like him. I like him a lot.
Scotty, explain that to Jennifer.
Explain Ted Cruz and Donald Trump?
The birther thing. She's upset about it.
Oh, no,
No, because
Jennifer.
here's what my husband said this. He made a good point. He said, he was worried because, okay, all right, to change my mind, I'm nervous, but go.
Please ease your mind. Donald Trump always been on the record that the birther issue with Ted Cruz was nonsense. They are working together. This is exactly. Now, remember, they've been telling us for weeks that we're going to have to fight. You know, you got two best buddies that are walking down the street. Eventually, you know, they got to at least act like they fight every once in a while. Or somebody's going to think something's going on. And the one thing that Ted Cruz has needed to be attacked so that it can neutralize it before we get to the primary is this birther issue. There is a small fraction. I've got 200 Facebook friends, and I've got a fraction that have a birther issue with Ted Cruz. It's a tiny, minute little piece. If you notice, Ted Cruz was ready to go with an answer on that. You notice it was the same pattern as all the other attacks where Donald Trump just throws something and Ted Cruz just handles it. They're playing Frisbee. Don't get upset. It was planned out, it was thought out, and it was effective because it gave Ted Cruz finally the opportunity during the primary to get his bully pulpit moment on this issue. It is going to really take care of the issue in the mind over the next few weeks as we look. Of those who have been on the fence, you know, they've never really investigated it. They don't like the idea of somebody that's not citizen or not legal to be president. They don't like that, but they've never really looked at it. And then you've got this small little nucleus of these guys, and most of them don't like Ted anyway, who have made this issue. And I think that after this is done, I think it basically finishes it off. I really think it was a smart move. I think if I were Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, they're looking at each other going, okay, I got to throw something. I'm Donald. I got to throw something. We're at the top together. What am I going to throw? If I were Ted Cruz, I'd say throw the birther thing. Let's get the birther thing out there. Ted Cruz and Donald Trump are manipulating the media like Rodney said earlier, like they're playing the violin. And I think this whole thing is good cop, bad cop. And in fact, when I saw that hit Facebook, I cheered. Yes. So get excited about it, Jennifer.
Okay, I'll trust your judgment, Scott, because you have excellent judgment. So I'm gonna trust you on this one.
They
always teach me something new every Monday. I always learn something new and exciting that gives me hope.
I'll tell you, when you start realizing that they're in this together, it's fascinating to watch. And I'll tell you, Ted Cruz, if you look at the Real Clear Politics on the nomination, everybody goes up and down. You know, they start low, they go up, they have their feet that go down. You know, some have gone up and stayed up like Ted Cruz, but he's had his ups and downs. Ben Carson got up, he had his ups and downs. But Ted Cruz is the only person, except for Lindsey Graham, who held a straight line at 1%. But Ted Cruz is the only one who has started at one place at the beginning of the race and steadily risen. There's been no up and down. It has been a steady rise, and still, right now, while he's got great momentum, it is still a steady rise. And momentum is hugely on his side. We get to the primaries, that gap between Cruz and Donald Trump is going to shrink because you've got a whole lot more primary voters who are very serious about the primaries and these smaller primaries and caucuses. And it just always does. That's going to shrink a little bit. Does Ted Cruz have the ability to pass up Donald Trump and sweep the primaries? I think he does. And I think he turns around and he takes Donald Trump as vice president. Donald Trump gets in charge of the Senate, goes down there and turns that into a reality TV show, and America happily ever after.
Wow.
I need some music, Rodney. I need
I know. Can we get like a drum roll or a clap soundtrack for that?
We should have had a sponsor for that one. That's awesome. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Jennifer is editor over at thecollegefix.com. That's like the word thecollegefix.com. If you go over there on your inner tubes and you see what's going on the campus, that's the key to thecollegefix.com. Because it's tough to keep tabs on what the kids are doing. I know in my life, I have no idea what they're doing. So I have not only have Jennifer on the show as often as we can, but we highlight and we promote and we tell people to go to thecollegefix.com where there's tons of articles, including ones written by Jennifer. And tell us, JK, I got to give you one of those celebrity names. I watched the Golden Globes last night, and I was trying to think of it. What do I call you, JK? I think I'm going to just call you, that doesn't work either. I got to figure out. Anyway, what's going on campus this past over the new year, and what can we look for over there, Jennifer?
Well, I can tell you about our top story today, written by JK herself. And you say, what's going on with the students? And that's an important question. But another important question is, what's going on with the professors? What are they teaching these, brains full of mush? Because that's at the heart and soul of the problem with higher education today. What are they teaching, the curriculum? And we have a story on a psychology professor at the University of California, Merced. And essentially, he taught his students that most acts of terrorism in America are committed by white men who are religiously motivated and politically conservative. So telling the kids that all the U.S. terrorists, 90% of U.S. terrorists are conservative white men. Now, he goes on to tell this story about some white Christian man who, grabbed his AK-47. We have all of this on video. You got to check it out. It's fascinating. We have the lecture on video. He tells this class about, this white Christian guy in Texas who grabbed his AK-47 and shot 60 rounds at the Texas State House. Okay? The problem is that never happened. And so it was a wrong example to give. I mean, it just completely inappropriate. But then he goes on to say that this is a lesson on heuristics. What he's essentially saying, because he's a psychology professor, is many Americans wrongly believe that Muslims make up the vast majority of U.S. terrorists because they have not thought long and hard on the matter. Essentially, he's saying we're too stupid to figure out that it's white, Christian conservatives that are the terrorists, not the Muslims, because heuristic is essentially a mental shortcut that allows people to solve problems and make judgments quickly. So when you think the word terrorist, what comes to mind? Okay. Well, if it's a guy, in a turban or whatever, then you're too stupid to figure out the truth. You've taken a mental shortcut called heuristics. That was the lesson there from the psychology scholar. But here's the irony, okay? 2 weeks after he gives this lecture, a young Muslim by the name of Fasil Mohammed went on a stabbing spree. This was at the University of Merced. Went on a stabbing spree and stabbed 4 students before he was shot and killed by a campus police officer. But that's the irony there, right? That he's sitting there telling his entire class of like 250 freshmen, young, impressionable students that it's the white conservatives that are doing all the terrorism in the U.S. And then 2 weeks later, Faisal Muhammad goes and with his ISIS flag and his instructions on how to behead people, and goes and stabs people, just kind of proves the point of how off base this professor was. But he also told the students, again, we have this on video, that 9/11 was basically the only act of foreign-born terrorism that has ever happened in the United States. He made that claim to the students. And there's 2 students in this class who provided the video of the lecture to the College Fix on the condition of anonymity. I asked them, well, why did you wait so long to give us this video? And they said, well, we wanted to get our grades secured first, because you never know what they're going to face, right, if it's found out that they turned their professor in. So they wanted to secure their grades. But underscoring that, they wanted to wait. I mean, when the stabbing happened on this campus, it was dramatic and traumatic, and they wanted to respect the mourning period. So now they felt it was enough time had gone on that they could go ahead and release the video in good conscience. And so the scholar okay.
No, I have a question. The kid that started stabbing people, something Muhammad. What was his name again?
Faisal Muhammad. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. You remember that stabbing at UC Merced?
Yeah.
He wanted to behead people, and
my question is this: was he pre-med? Because maybe, I mean, Ben Carson was stabbing people too when he was younger, and he became a brilliant surgeon. So I mean,
that's so ridiculous, Rodney. I swear. Oh man.
That's why they call it practicing medicine, because you practice. You don't normally practice on members of your own family, but he did. Ben Carson did grow up, and he successfully surgically separated conjoined twins. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has dated twins. So we've got a lot of diversity, is what I'm saying, in the Republican Party.
Yes.
And sorry to make pre-med jokes about Faisal Muhammad, but let's just put it this way: if your first name's Muhammad and your second name isn't Ali, I mean, there's something that you got to be a little bit wary. I do believe what you're telling me. Of course, you got it on video. People would not believe it if you didn't have it on video. Am I correct?
The left believes that most terrorists are white Christians. They believe that. Because what they do, and Scott, you probably know a lot about this with having the Sloans on, the way that they categorize, like for this Faisal Muhammad guy, they are not saying it was Islamic radical extremist terrorism. They're categorizing him as a disgruntled student, because they're saying the reason he stabbed a bunch of people, never mind the ISIS flag or the instructions on how to behead or pray to Mecca, they're saying that he stabbed all these people because he was upset they kicked him out of the study group. So this was just, school-place violence, right? And that's what they do. So the left has come up with these studies that purport to show that, all these attacks. Remember the Fort Hood, that was workplace violence, and who knows what they're trying to call the Boston, bombers or the Chattanooga shooters. I mean, they come up with all these sorts of reasons why the Muslim-based attacks are not terrorism. But when it comes to, so I emailed the professor. I said, please explain yourself. I can't find any record of this Texas State House shooting. And the professor responded, he said it was an honest mistake, that he was actually referring to a situation in 2004 where a heavily armed gunmen stormed a courthouse in Georgia, and that did happen. But the guy had been described as a sovereign citizen who was anti-government and anti-police. I mean, when you say a conservative, white guy, you think of your typical, your Republican candidates. But they're painting these complete loonies like the Planned Parenthood shooter, or people who are mentally insane, effectively, right, as these conservative right-wingers that are committing these acts of terror. Right, so if you have, you see what I'm saying? So they're conflating these examples with, and that's why the left honestly believes, they try to say, and they tout this with some authority, that there's more white conservative terrorists than Muslim terrorists in America, because they are ignoring the Muslim terrorists and not calling it radical Islam. And in the meantime, they're calling Looney Tunes absolutely, bat crap crazy, white guys who do something crazy for no good reason, not beholden to the true conservative notions or ideals. They're just crazy, and they're saying, oh, there goes the right wingers again, shooting up Planned Parenthood and the courthouses. So
I emailed that guy too. I emailed that professor because he was saying that white male French conservatives were responsible for the Charlie Hebdo attacks. He said that, and I emailed him and I said, you need to clarify that. And he said, oh, I'm sorry. It was an honest mistake. I was confused. I was thinking about the storming of the Bastille. So that was kind of weird.
That was a very intelligent joke, Rodney. You had to really use your brain for that one.
I went a long way for that one. But the point is this. He wrote you back an email and said, oh, it's an honest mistake. It wasn't just the other day in Texas. It was 12 years ago in Georgia. How can you make a mistake like that? The guy's
well, it was 2004. Well, he was saying because he claimed that the police released video of the shooting. Nobody died but the gunman, by the way. There was like cops all over the courthouse and they shot him dead. That's a great Second Amendment. Thank you. But he's trying to say that they released a video of the shooting in the summer of 2015. That's why he kind of got it confused. But I think I found, when I was researching the issue, I found video of it from CNN from right after it happened. So I just put all the. Look, you know what? Here's the thing. With the College Fix, we put all the facts up, and we're going to let you, the reader, decide what you think of this guy. I want to say this, and like I said, and I know the Sloans have talked a lot about this on your show, Scott. This idea that it's the white conservatives that are terrorists. They're trying to convince us, Americans, young people, a classroom full of freshmen, and if you think this is the only professor saying it, you're sorely mistaken, that it's not the Muslims, it's the white conservative Christians. They're the ones that are shooting everybody up. They're the ones that are bombing everybody. They're the ones that are the problem. And because of this, that's why, there's political correctness. We can't say what we feel, but there's so much frustration about it. That's why Trump's soaring in the polls, because we're saying enough is enough. We want to speak the truth. That radical Islam is a problem, and it needs to be identified and addressed.
But
you got to see this video. I mean, this guy is hilarious. Please watch this video.
We will.
It's incredible. Incredible what this guy gets away with. And then he shows, this is the funniest thing, a slide. The student sent me a copy of the professor's lecture slide that went along with his anecdote, right? And it's this white guy river rafting with like a beer, and he's in like a floaty, like cruising down the river with his beer and his like hat and everything. I mean, it's just so funny, the caricature that these professors try to paint of the of the South, basically. I mean, Scott, you should take this as a personal affront. Please read this story and check it out, because I know your people would appreciate it, and sound off on the comment section and let the professor know what they think of all this. He even tried to say y'all in the video. He's like, when he was telling his made up story about the Texas State House shooting, he's like, did you hear about that in the media? He's asking his class, have you heard one thing about that? No, but if it was a Muslim, it would be everywhere. Wouldn't you all have heard about that if it was a Muslim? So he even went there, and the whole story was completely made up. It's shocking.
Well, I can relate to the professor a little bit. Seeing something on video and thinking that it's current. Because I've been running around screaming for like 2 months now that the Nazis have taken back over Germany. And then I realized I was just watching Hogan's Heroes on TV Land. So I can kind of understand how you can make mistakes like that.
Oh, Rodney.
But we will be promoting the heck out of this story. And, yeah, you got to go over and watch it for yourself. Go over to thecollegefix.com and look for that story. I don't know how they search it out there, but it's probably pretty easy.
It's the top story of the day. I literally just posted it last night, so it's a top story.
Go over there right now, then. Right now.
But hey, Rodney, do we have time for one more little funny one?
Oh, plenty.
Go right ahead.
Okay. So we landed on Drudge last week, and it was great. And the story was about how this university can now publish, are you ready for it? Neck rubs as sexual battery. sexual battery for a neck rub under this new policy they just implemented for the new year. And, kind of bummed me out because I love neck rubs. Okay, I am a sucker for neck rubs. I think they're being a little extreme. What do you think, Rodney?
I'm speechless.
Hello? Is he speechless? We might have lost him. I know he'd have a comment on that because he gets excited every time I talk about neck rubs. But, the absurdity of that story was just how far college campuses are taking these onerous rules of, the policy said, however slight the neck rub, that could be defined as sexual battery. Sexual battery, which is a very serious, accusation. And yet they're being flippant about it and calling a slight neck rub sexual battery. I think it degrades the definition of sexual battery and is onerous and actually kind of silly.
That's insane, Jennifer. Absolutely insane. Rodney, are you there?
Yes.
There he is.
I lost you for a minute.
He's there. He's forward.
I was on mute.
Oh, it's okay, but you just missed my joke about neck rubs. That's all.
Well, I didn't miss it. It was hysterical, and I'll tell you this: I should get 99 years to life if that's a crime.
Yeah, I mean, it just never ends at the absurdity on campuses.
What they're doing is extrapolating. You see, we all know what neck rub leads to. It leads to back massage, and then that leads to something else. So what they're doing is they're assuming that everyone is a criminal and a sexual predator, because that's what liberals do. It's like, we found a case where there was some actual sexual assault, and it started out, there was some testimony about a neck rub. And so rather than focus on the real problem, they go for the neck rubs, because that's how they are. They're crazy. I mean, they're literally. I didn't used to think this. I always thought this was a really mean thing to say 20 years ago. But I do now agree that liberalism is a mental health condition. I really do, and it's pushed. It's just pushed so strongly by emotion that it's almost like you're unhinged. You'd have to be unhinged to think that a neck rub is sexual assault. That's not just wrong thinking. That's a mental health issue, don't you think, Jennifer?
I just think they want to control everything. I mean, they create these Title IX diversity offices and the inclusion office and the sexual assault office and the rights for women office, and they have like 20 offices all sitting around twiddling their thumbs going, how can we control student behavior? I mean, the bureaucracy is creating these ludicrous regulations, and meanwhile we got like 100 male students filing lawsuits saying they were wrongly expelled for nothing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just the bureaucracy on the Title IX stuff is out of control,
But that's okay with liberals, too, because then the trial lawyers win. And the trial lawyers, I think, are the number 2 contributors to Democrat politicians. So it's a vicious circle. It all works for them. Jennifer, as usual, a great appearance. I wish you could call in earlier next week. If you can, please do. We love talking to you, and it's a lot of fun. And I certainly didn't mean to. Well, I did mean to make light of some things because that's what I do. But we only got two more minutes here, so we're going to say goodbye. And Scotty, wrap this baby up in a bow for me, will you? We'll talk to you guys next week. Bye, Jennifer. Bye, Scotty.
Bye, guys.
Scotty,
Bye,
what do we got going this week?
Oh, we got all kinds of fun stuff going on. We've got on American Sovereignty tomorrow night. We've got Carly Miller, who is the field director for JD Winteregg. And I'll tell you, man, there's some great things going on over there with JD. He's got a really nice little ground team that is very active, and Charlie has been a huge plus to his campaign in the grassroots over the last year. And a few weeks ago, he took over as field director, and we're going to have him on, and we're going to talk. About David Bratt and Eric Cantor. We're going to talk about Bob Hall and Bob Dewell and these races where a real strong grassroots effort can knock money right out. And Charlie's going to be, we're going to have a great discussion. Looking forward to that. And then, of course, we've got Saturday Symposium. And you know what, those guys, I've let all three of them, Gary and Gary and Glenn and Dan. And they've got a guest this weekend, but I can't remember the name, Rodney. They schedule it, set the whole thing up all themselves. So Saturday Symposium with Dan Wilson. And, of course, Friday on Ladies Bible Class. Rodney, we are having a great time. Starting the story of King Saul. Now, if you like politics, folks, this is the to listen to Ladies Bible Class as we wander through the story in the Old Testament. Because Saul was the ultimate king as a politician. And there are a lot of political analogies in there. When I'm teaching Ladies Bible Class, Rodney, sometimes I quote politics. And this is an area of the Bible where you can really quote a lot of politics. And we're having a great time. Join us there. And we have got a Bible question and answer series coming up on Sunday. Hopefully this Sunday coming up. We were hoping to have it done by this last Sunday, but we didn't get everybody totally set up. So all kinds of fun things, Rodney. Till next week when we are here at Conover U. Rodney, what should we close out with?
Okay, man. Play us out. I'll talk to you then.
All righty.
Bye-bye.
Geico presents sharing versus oversharing. Earlier this week, Claire Tippins shared a princess nickname generator, 3 pictures of her dog wearing a tutu, and 2 online quizzes, including what candy is your dream castle made of? Claire, your sharing has tipped the sugar scale and turned into oversharing. But have no fear, princess. Geico has something worth sharing with your internet kingdom, like how you could save hundreds on your car insurance just by visiting geico.com. No magic wand required. Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.